Ladies and gentlemen, think about how much time you spend in stress, reacting to the world around you. Stress is not just a passing emotion, it becomes part of who you are. When you feel stress, whether it's from work, relationships, or simply the rush of daily life, your body enters survival mode. And survival was never meant to be a way of living, it was meant to be a short-term response. The problem is, most of us stay in that mode far too long. Your brain begins to fixate on the worst possible outcomes, repeating the same stressful thoughts over and over again, and your body doesn't know the difference between real danger and the thoughts you obsess over. This constant pressure sends your body signals that you're under threat, so your nervous system stays on alert, pumping stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol into your bloodstream. Over time, these hormones meant to help in emergencies start breaking you down. Your immune system weakens, your sleep gets disrupted, digestion suffers, memory declines, energy drops, and most importantly, your body becomes addicted to the very chemicals of stress. You begin to normalize stress, thinking it's just part of life. But stress, when sustained, is toxic. It disconnects you from your body, your intuition, and even from moments of joy that are right in front of you. You are not meant to live in survival mode every day. Stress may not feel like it's killing you right now, but the damage is happening under the surface. If you don't take control of your thoughts, emotions, and habits, stress will own you. The path to freedom starts with awareness. You have the power to break the cycle. When stress takes hold, your body shifts into survival mode, a state designed to keep you alive in moments of real danger. Think about what happens when you encounter a threat. Your heart races, muscles tense, and focus narrows. This is the fight or flight response, the body's way of preparing you to either run from danger or face it head on. In short bursts, this response can save your life. But here's the catch: your body was not built to stay in this heightened state for long. The survival response is like an emergency switch, meant to flick on when needed and turn off once the threat is gone. But in today's world, we are rarely being chased by predators. Instead, we deal with constant low-level stress from deadlines, financial worries, relationship conflicts, and the pressure to always stay ahead. The mind, however, doesn't distinguish between a real physical threat and psychological stress. It reacts the same way. Each time you feel overwhelmed, anxious, or angry, that survival switch is flipped, flooding your body with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. The problem arises when this state becomes your default mode. Your body wasn't designed to function under constant stress, but for many it becomes a way of life. Instead of being used for brief moments of crisis, survival mode becomes the norm, locking your nervous system into high alert day after day. This wears down your energy reserves, making you more vulnerable to exhaustion and illness. Even worse, when the body is in survival mode, it prioritizes immediate survival over long-term health, suppressing systems like digestion, immunity, and repair mechanisms. In this state, your thinking becomes reactive. Your brain narrows its focus, scanning for problems instead of possibilities. You lose access to creativity, clarity, and higher reasoning because the mind is preoccupied with managing threats, whether they are real or imagined. Over time, living like this reshapes your personality. You become irritable, defensive, or anxious without even realizing that stress is driving these behaviors. The truth is, chronic stress drains your body and mind, slowly unraveling your sense of well-being. Survival mode was never meant to be a lifestyle. If you don't become aware of this pattern and consciously step out of it, your body will begin to deteriorate under the constant weight of stress. It's like running an engine at full throttle without ever turning it off. Eventually, it burns out. You have to remember that life isn't meant to be lived in survival mode. You need to learn how to switch off that emergency response and reconnect with the calm, centered version of yourself. Because the longer you stay trapped in survival mode, the further you drift from the peace, clarity, and joy that are already within you. Your mind is an incredibly powerful tool. It doesn't just passively observe the world, it shapes your experience of it. The fascinating and sometimes dangerous thing is that your body responds to your thoughts as though they are real events. When you imagine a stressful scenario, replay an argument, or anticipate the worst, your brain and body react exactly as if those situations are happening in real time. Each time you think about an upcoming problem or dwell on past pain, your brain signals your body to release stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. These chemicals are useful if you're in actual danger, but when they flood your system repeatedly from imagined threats, they wear you down. Your heart rate increases, muscles tense, and blood pressure rises, all because your mind is tricking your body into thinking it's under attack. The more you dwell on these thoughts, the stronger the connection between your mind and the physical stress response becomes. Think about how a single worry can spiral into a storm. You might start by thinking about a conversation you need to have at work. Before long, your mind has created an entire story. What if it goes badly? What if you say the wrong thing? What if you lose your job? Your body, unaware that these are just thoughts, responds to every what if as though it were fact. It prepares you for fight or flight, even though the only thing happening is the movie playing out in your mind. Over time, this imagined stress becomes your reality. The body, constantly triggered by thoughts of potential danger, stays in a heightened state of arousal. Eventually, this chronic stress causes wear and tear, leading to fatigue, weakened immunity, and even chronic illness. It's as if you are practicing being stressed, and the more you practice, the better you become at it. Your thoughts carve neural pathways in your brain, making stress your mind's default setting. This pattern is self-reinforcing. The more you focus on imagined problems, the more your body feels stressed, and the more stressed you feel, the more your mind looks for threats. It's a loop that can be hard to break. You might find yourself waking up anxious, unable to sleep, or struggling to stay present because your mind keeps racing ahead to everything that could go wrong. But the mind's power to create physical effects works both ways. Just as your thoughts can make you feel stressed, they can also make you feel calm, joyful, and at ease. By consciously shifting your focus away from imagined threats and into thoughts of gratitude, possibility, or love, you send a very different message to your body. You tell it that you are safe, that there's no need to fight or run. And your body responds by relaxing, slowing your heart rate, balancing your hormones, and returning you to a state of balance. The truth is, most of the things you fear or worry about never actually happen, but if your mind believes they will, your body pays the price anyway. That's the power of thought. Your goal isn't to control every thought, but to become aware of them and realize that you don't have to believe everything you think. When you understand that imagined threats are just stories your mind is telling, you can step out of survival mode and reclaim your peace. The key is learning to choose thoughts that serve your well-being, not ones that sabotage it. Your body is designed to handle stress in short bursts. When faced with danger, the brain triggers the release of cortisol and adrenaline, two powerful hormones that help you respond quickly. Adrenaline boosts your heart rate, sharpens your focus, and sends energy to your muscles. Meanwhile, cortisol raises your blood sugar and suppresses non-essential systems like digestion and immunity to prioritize survival. This is perfect when you need to escape immediate threats. But when stress becomes chronic, and these hormones stay elevated for too long, the very systems designed to protect you begin to work against you. Prolonged exposure to cortisol weakens your immune system, leaving you more vulnerable to illness. This happens because cortisol interferes with the immune system's ability to produce white blood cells, which are essential for fighting off infections and repairing damaged tissues. In normal circumstances, your immune system operates like a finely tuned orchestra, constantly identifying and neutralizing invaders. But under chronic stress, the body becomes confused. It shifts its resources away from immunity to handle the emergency that your mind and body believe you're in. Over time, this suppression leads to real consequences. You may notice that you get sick more often, or that it takes longer to recover from common colds or infections. Chronic stress also promotes inflammation, a subtle underlying state that wears down the body. Inflammation plays a role in almost every chronic condition, from heart disease and diabetes to autoimmune disorders. What's even more troubling is that with a weakened immune system, your body struggles to keep abnormal cells in check, which can increase the risk of more serious health problems over time. Adrenaline, when overproduced, also takes a toll. It keeps the nervous system on high alert, which disrupts sleep and increases fatigue. Poor sleep alone is enough to impair immunity, as your body does its repair work during deep rest. Without quality sleep, stress levels rise even further, creating a feedback loop. Your immune defenses weaken, you feel more tired, and your body's natural rhythm falls out of balance. This constant strain on your immune system also affects your gut, where a large portion of immune cells are located. Chronic stress disrupts the balance of healthy bacteria, weakening the gut lining and making it easier for harmful substances to enter your bloodstream. This can trigger food sensitivities, digestive issues, and a compromised immune response. You might not realize the connection between stress and your health at first. Maybe you chalk up the recurring headaches, muscle aches, or fatigue to everyday life. But these are signals from your body warning you that something deeper is off. The longer cortisol and adrenaline flood your system, the harder it becomes to bounce back. It's like running a car engine nonstop without ever turning it off. Eventually, it breaks down. The good news is that the immune system is incredibly adaptive. When you reduce stress and allow your body to return to a state of calm, your immune function improves. White blood cells regenerate, inflammation decreases, and your body becomes more resilient to illness. It starts with awareness, recognizing how much of your stress is unnecessary and reclaiming the ability to pause, breathe, and trust that you are safe. Every time you relax, whether through meditation, movement, or simply focusing on something that brings you joy, you send a powerful message to your immune system. You tell it, I've got this. The danger has passed. And in that space, healing can begin. Stress isn't just something you experience, it's something your body learns. When you repeatedly face stress, whether from work, relationships, or daily challenges, your brain and body begin to adapt to that state of being. What starts as a temporary response meant to help you survive slowly becomes your baseline. The chemicals released during stress, like cortisol and adrenaline, create a sense of urgency and alertness, and over time, your body and brain can become addicted to this heightened state. Stress hormones are powerful, and they don't just prepare you to act, they stimulate your brain's reward centers. The burst of energy, the sharp focus, even the feeling of being on edge can become familiar and strangely satisfying. This is where the addiction begins. The body starts to crave that familiar rush, and the mind keeps finding ways to trigger it. You unconsciously seek out stressful situations or mentally rehearse negative scenarios, not because you want to, but because your brain and body have learned to feel alive under stress. The brain reinforces this addiction by creating neural pathways like well-worn trails in the forest that make stress responses automatic. Each time you react with frustration, fear, or worry, you deepen these pathways. It becomes easier and easier to slip into stress until it feels normal. Even when life is calm, your mind searches for something to stress about. You might find yourself checking your phone obsessively, overthinking conversations, or imagining worst-case scenarios, all to trigger that chemical fix your brain has grown accustomed to. At the same time, your body develops a tolerance to stress hormones. What once felt overwhelming becomes the new normal, so it takes even more stress to feel that same rush. This is why people who live under chronic stress often find it hard to relax. Stillness feels uncomfortable, almost boring, because the body isn't receiving the chemical signals it's used to. You might sit down to unwind, only to feel restless or anxious, as if something is missing. That something is the absence of the stress chemicals your body has learned to depend on. Over time, the addiction to stress affects every part of your life. Your relationships may suffer because you're always on edge waiting for the next thing to go wrong. Sleep becomes difficult because your mind races with unfinished tasks and future worries. Even your physical health declines as the constant release of cortisol and adrenaline weakens your immune system, disrupts digestion, and drains your energy. Yet, despite the exhaustion, your body keeps looking for that next hit of stress, like an engine that can't stop running. Breaking free from this cycle isn't easy because the addiction is both mental and physical. Your mind believes it needs stress to stay alert and in control, and your body reinforces that belief by craving the chemicals it associates with survival. But the truth is, you don't need stress to feel alive, you've just forgotten how to access other states of being like calm, joy, and presence. The first step is awareness, recognizing that stress has become your default setting. It means noticing when your mind starts looking for problems that aren't really there, or when your body feels restless in moments of peace. From there, it's about retraining your brain and body to experience safety and ease. Small moments of stillness, whether through deep breathing, mindfulness, or simply slowing down, begin to teach your nervous system that it's okay to let go. At first, it will feel uncomfortable. Your mind will resist, and your body may even crave the familiar chaos of stress. But the more you practice being present, the more you open new neural pathways, ones that allow for calm and clarity. Over time, you rewire your brain to find satisfaction and peace rather than stress. And as your body learns to function without the constant need for adrenaline and cortisol, you'll rediscover a state of balance that feels far more natural and sustainable than the one stress ever provided. This is the power of choice. You don't have to let stress define you. You can step out of the loop, reclaim your mind, and teach your body a new way of being, one that no longer depends on stress to feel alive. Chronic stress is not just a mental experience, it reshapes your brain and disrupts essential functions, including your ability to sleep, focus, and retain memories. When stress hijacks the nervous system, keeping the mind stuck in overdrive, which makes deep rest and mental clarity feel increasingly out of reach. The same stress hormones meant to keep you alert in emergencies, like cortisol, begin interfering with the delicate balance your brain requires for proper functioning. Over time, what you lose isn't just peace of mind, but the ability to think clearly, learn effectively, and recharge fully. When stress becomes constant, it throws off your sleep-wake cycle. Cortisol levels, which should naturally drop in the evening to help you sleep, remain elevated. Your body stays in a heightened state of vigilance, making it difficult to fall asleep or stay asleep. Even if you do manage to sleep, the quality suffers. Instead of experiencing the deep, restorative stages of rest that repair your body and brain, your nervous system remains slightly activated, and you wake up feeling tired, no matter how many hours you've spent in bed. It's like your brain never fully powers down, always preparing for the next imaginary threat. Without adequate sleep, the brain can't properly process and store memories. Sleep is the time when the mind consolidates information, linking new experiences with existing knowledge. But when chronic stress disrupts sleep, it scrambles this process. You might find yourself forgetting things more often, struggling to recall conversations, or feeling mentally foggy throughout the day. It's not that your brain is failing, it's that it hasn't been given the time it needs to reset and organize your thoughts. Over time, this can lead to a sense of overwhelm as you're constantly trying to stay afloat in a mind that feels scattered and disorganized. The decline in focus is another side effect of chronic stress. In moments of real danger, the brain narrows its attention to immediate threats, tuning out anything irrelevant to survival. But under chronic stress, this state of hyperfocus on perceived problems becomes the norm. Instead of being fully present in your daily activities, your attention gets pulled in every direction, constantly scanning for what might go wrong. It becomes harder to complete tasks, stay engaged, or follow through on goals because your mind is always on edge, waiting for the next crisis. This fractured attention also impacts creativity and problem solving. When stress takes over, the brain shifts resources away from the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for complex thinking and decision-making, and funnels energy towards survival mechanisms. This makes it difficult to think clearly, weigh options, or generate new ideas. You might find yourself making impulsive decisions, second-guessing everything, or feeling stuck in repetitive thought loops. The more stressed you are, the more difficult it becomes to access that calm, open mental space where insight and clarity naturally arise. It's a vicious cycle. Poor sleep leads to memory lapses and impaired focus, which generate more stress, further disrupting your sleep and mental performance. Each piece feeds the next, reinforcing a state of mental fog, forgetfulness, and exhaustion. And when you're tired and unfocused, even simple tasks start to feel overwhelming, which only adds to your stress load. The brain begins to operate in survival mode by default, leaving no room for growth, learning, or mental recovery. The good news is that the brain has the capacity to heal and rewire. Just as chronic stress can diminish your cognitive abilities, intentional practices of rest and relaxation can restore them. Small steps like mindful breathing, disconnecting from screens, or creating evening routines begin to signal your brain that it's safe to let go. As cortisol levels drop and your sleep improves, memory and focus start to return. You gradually reclaim the mental clarity that once felt elusive. You don't have to accept brain fog and restless nights as your normal. By breaking the stress cycle, you allow your brain to operate the way it's designed: focused, clear, and fully present. And with that shift, you move from surviving each day to truly living it. When you are trapped in a survival mindset, joy and meaningful connections slip through your fingers without you even realizing it. The brain, conditioned to detect threats and avoid danger, becomes hyper-focused on staying safe. In this state, your nervous system prioritizes self-preservation over everything else. It's not that you choose to disconnect from others or abandon joy, it's that your body simply doesn't recognize these things as essential for survival. Slowly but surely, the things that once brought you happiness and the people who made you feel alive become distant, overshadowed by the relentless pursuit of getting through the day. In survival mode, your brain shifts away from the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for emotional connection, empathy, and long-term vision, and activates the more primal regions designed for fight or flight responses. This shift makes it difficult to access emotions like joy, gratitude, or love. Even when you're surrounded by family or friends, your mind might be elsewhere, scanning for the next thing to worry about. You may find it hard to laugh freely, savor small moments, or feel a deep connection with others because survival mode narrows your focus to what do I need to do next rather than who am I sharing this moment with. Human connection, at its core, requires presence. To truly engage with others, you must be mentally and emotionally available. But when stress takes over, your ability to be present diminishes. Conversations become mechanical, and your attention is fragmented. You might nod along or respond out of habit, but inside you're distracted by your to-do list, future worries, or unresolved frustrations. Over time, this disconnect creates emotional distance between you and the people you care about. You may start to feel isolated, not because people have left your life, but because your survival mindset has cut you off from meaningful engagement with them. The same goes for joy. In a survival state, joy feels indulgent, even impractical. Your brain, conditioned to see threats everywhere, dismisses the moments of lightness and happiness as unimportant. You might rush through experiences that once made you feel alive, like a walk in nature, a favorite hobby, or time with loved ones, without truly savoring them. This inability to slow down and experience joy keeps you locked in the loop of stress. You convince yourself, I'll enjoy life when things settle down, but things never seem to settle. And with each passing day, you lose touch with what once gave your life meaning. Even your relationships are affected. Survival mode shifts your interactions toward efficiency and problem solving. Conversations become focused on tasks and logistics, leaving little room for vulnerability or emotional sharing. You might notice yourself being more irritable, reactive, or impatient with those closest to you as your nervous system stays primed for conflict. When the body feels under threat, trust becomes harder to cultivate, and you may find yourself holding back emotionally, even from the people who love you. Over time, these small disconnects add up, creating a sense of loneliness even in the company of others. This loss of connection doesn't only affect personal relationships, it erodes your relationship with yourself. Without space for joy, you lose sight of who you are beyond the roles you play and the problems you try to solve. Life becomes a series of tasks to complete, a race to survive each day, rather than a journey to explore and enjoy. You may feel a growing emptiness, wondering why fulfillment seems so elusive even when you're doing everything right. It's not because you're incapable of joy or connection, it's because the survival mindset has overshadowed them. But the good news is that joy and connection are not lost forever. They are waiting like seeds beneath the surface ready to bloom when you shift out of survival mode. It begins with small acts of presence, taking a moment to breathe, noticing the sunlight filtering through the trees, or truly listening when someone speaks to you. These moments may seem insignificant, but they are doorways back to joy. Each time you pause, even briefly, you remind your nervous system that it's safe to relax, safe to feel, safe to connect. Reclaiming joy also means reconnecting with yourself. It's about giving yourself permission to experience happiness, even if everything isn't perfect. It's learning to find beauty in the ordinary and recognizing that joy isn't something you earn by completing all your tasks, it's something you allow yourself to feel right here and now. As you practice presence and allow yourself to experience joy, connection naturally follows. The more present you are, the more deeply you engage with others. Relationships that once felt distant begin to blossom, and you rediscover the power of being fully seen and heard. In these moments of connection, whether with others or yourself, you begin to remember what it means to be truly alive. Joy is not a luxury, it's your natural state, waiting for you to return. Stress is a silent force, slowly weaving its way into your body and mind, often without you realizing the extent of the damage. It doesn't arrive with dramatic symptoms or clear warnings. Instead, it lingers quietly, building layer upon layer. You might dismiss the fatigue, irritability, or frequent headaches as normal, just the price of a busy life. But beneath the surface, stress is rewriting the way your body functions, disrupting systems that are essential for your health. And by the time the effects become visible, reversing the damage feels like an uphill battle. Chronic stress operates like an invisible toxin, trickling into every corner of your body. The cardiovascular system, for instance, endures subtle wear and tear each time cortisol surges through your veins. Your heart races, blood pressure creeps up, and arteries harden over time. Yet you don't notice these changes day by day, you adapt to them, thinking that occasional chest tightness or shortness of breath is nothing serious. But then years down the road, a heart attack or hypertension diagnosis forces you to confront what stress has quietly been building all along. The immune system also pays a steep price. With every prolonged period of stress, your body shifts resources away from immunity to focus on immediate survival. At first, you might brush off the signs: more frequent colds, allergies flaring up, or wounds taking longer to heal. These seem like minor inconveniences. But over time, your defenses weaken, leaving you vulnerable to chronic inflammation, autoimmune disorders, or even life-threatening illnesses. And because these conditions develop gradually, stress never feels like the obvious culprit until the damage is deeply ingrained. The brain, too, suffers in ways that are not immediately apparent. Stress reshapes neural pathways, weakening the connections necessary for emotional regulation, memory, and focus. At first, you might notice small things: forgetting names, misplacing items, struggling to concentrate. You attribute it to age, busyness, or lack of sleep. But the truth is, stress has been rewiring your brain for months, even years. Over time, these cognitive lapses become more frequent and harder to ignore, leaving you wondering how your mind became so scattered without warning. Hormonal balance is another area where stress leaves its hidden marks. Chronic stress disrupts the delicate dance between cortisol, insulin, and other hormones, leading to weight gain, fatigue, and hormonal imbalances. You might find yourself craving sugar, struggling to maintain energy, or experiencing irregular cycles, but the connection to stress remains unclear. By the time conditions like metabolic disorders, adrenal fatigue, or thyroid issues emerge, the underlying stress that fueled them has long been normalized in your life. Perhaps the most dangerous aspect of stress is how easily it disguises itself as normal. You tell yourself this is just how life is, or things will calm down soon, but the truth is, the stress never leaves, it simply finds new ways to settle into your body, day after day. The human body is remarkably adaptive, but it's not designed to endure constant strain without consequences. And because stress damages slowly and silently, it often takes a breaking point, a burnout, a diagnosis, or a health scare before you realize how deeply it has taken root. The challenge is that once the damage becomes visible, reversing it can be overwhelming. The years of accumulated stress create deep grooves in your nervous system, and recovery requires more than just rest. It demands a shift in mindset, habits, and self-care practices, a conscious effort to unwind what stress has built. But when you've lived in survival mode for so long, healing feels foreign, like a luxury you can't afford. You might even feel resistant to slowing down, afraid that if you pause, everything will fall apart. Yet healing is possible, even if the damage feels irreversible. It begins with awareness, recognizing that stress has been at the root of your health challenges, even if it wasn't obvious at first. Recovery is not about quick fixes, but about creating space for your body to repair itself, one small step at a time. The same way stress accumulated gradually, healing unfolds through consistent choices, moments of stillness, intentional relaxation, nourishing movement, and genuine connection. The invisible damage stress causes doesn't have to be permanent. Your body is resilient, capable of extraordinary renewal when given the right conditions. Healing may take time, but it's never too late to start. The sooner you listen to the whispers of stress, the sooner you can prevent those whispers from becoming screams. You have the power to reclaim your health, step out of survival mode, and restore balance before the damage becomes too deep to reverse easily. Breaking free from the grip of stress begins with one powerful realization: you are not your stress. It might feel like the anxious thoughts, the tension in your body, and the emotional turbulence are permanent parts of who you are, but they are not. They are patterns, habitual ways your brain and body have learned to respond to life. And just as you unknowingly reinforce those patterns, you can begin to unwind them. The first step is awareness, becoming conscious of how stress shows up in your thoughts, emotions, and physical state. Without this awareness, the mind stays trapped in autopilot, replaying the same stressful cycles again and again. But with awareness comes a shift, a gap between stimulus and response, where choice becomes possible. Awareness is not just noticing when you feel overwhelmed or exhausted, it's observing how subtle stress patterns creep into your mind throughout the day. It's catching yourself when your thoughts spiral into worst-case scenarios, noticing the tension that builds when you anticipate something going wrong, or recognizing how quickly frustration rises in traffic or during a conversation. The key is to become curious about these moments without judgment. Rather than labeling them as good or bad, you simply observe: here is my mind racing again. Here is my heart beating faster. This quiet observation creates a space between you and the stress, a space where you no longer feel entirely consumed by it. In that space, you begin to see that stress isn't just something that happens to you, it's something that is fueled by your responses. And if stress is created through thought patterns and emotional reactions, it can also be unmade. But this doesn't happen through force or willpower. You can't wrestle your way out of stress because resistance only feeds it. Instead, the way forward is through intentional choices, moment by moment, thought by thought, emotion by emotion. Intentional choices and thought begin with recognizing that not every thought deserves your attention. The mind will present fears, worries, and doubts as if they are urgent truths, but most of them are just echoes from the past or projections about a future that hasn't arrived. You don't have to believe everything you think. You can choose to let thoughts pass without engaging them, like clouds drifting across the sky. And when you do engage with your thoughts, you can begin to shift them consciously. Instead of asking, what if everything goes wrong, you can ask, what if things unfold better than I expect? This shift isn't about denying challenges, but about training your mind to see possibility where it once saw only threat. Intentional choices in emotion are just as crucial. Emotions are powerful drivers of experience, shaping not only how you feel, but also how you act and interact with the world. But emotions, like thoughts, are fleeting. They come and go unless you hold on to them. Stressful emotions like anger, fear, or frustration don't need to be suppressed, but they also don't need to define you. When they arise, you can feel them fully without becoming trapped in their energy. Breathe into them, acknowledge their presence, and allow them to pass through you, knowing they are temporary waves in the vast ocean of your being. As you practice this kind of awareness and make intentional choices in your thoughts and emotions, something profound begins to happen. You shift from being reactive to being deliberate. You begin to reclaim your energy, which was once scattered by stress, and channel it toward thoughts and emotions that serve your well-being. This isn't about pretending life is perfect, it's about realizing that peace is available to you even in the midst of imperfection. You don't have to wait for circumstances to change before you feel calm, connected, or joyful. Those emotions are available now if you choose to cultivate them. The beauty of this process is that it builds over time. Every time you notice a stressful thought and choose not to engage it, every time you allow an emotion to pass without clinging to it, you are rewiring your mind. You are training your nervous system to recognize that it is safe to relax, to trust, to be present. These small moments of awareness accumulate, and before long, the habitual stress responses that once felt automatic begin to loosen their grip. You begin to notice longer stretches of calm, moments of gratitude, and a deeper sense of ease, even in situations that used to trigger you. This shift doesn't mean you'll never experience stress again. Stress is part of being human. But the difference is that it no longer owns you. With awareness and intentionality, stress becomes a signal rather than a master reminder to pause, breathe, and choose again. And each time you choose presence over panic, curiosity over fear, gratitude over frustration, you are not just managing stress, you are breaking free from it. You are reclaiming the fullness of life not as something that happens to you, but as something you actively create, one choice at a time.